A wise man once said that there are only 3 certainties in life: death, taxes, and cat taking you directly off a cliff if you let her drive the warthog. Hello, I'm a frog, and in this video, I tried to beat the ultimate challenge in everyone's favorite Bungie Halo prequel, Halo Reach. That challenge is LASO. LASO, of course, stands for Legendary All Skulls On. Skulls just being various game modifiers that together make it way harder. Significantly harder than a standard Legendary playthrough. I'll explain a few of the more important skulls as we go through. Let's hop in. Our journey begins by showing us the end of the story first, like we're watching Memento, then it cuts to the past where my Spartan, who's green of course cause Frog, meets the members of Noble Team: Bald Guy, Ghost Rider, the Hot One, Boring Leader Guy, and George. We fly away to Mission 1, Winter Contingency, despite it clearly taking place in either the summer or the fall. Upon arrival, I exited the Falcon and you probably immediately noticed 2 things. 1, Rio Mikami has negative 2,147,483,648 points, and second, you can't see my gun, health, shields, or anything else. That's because of the blind skull, which disables your HUD and hides your weapon. After investigating a car wreck, smacking a giant bird, being told by libertarians to come back with a warrant, and finding a couple Marines sleeping on the job, we encountered another flock of birds seeking revenge on me for killing their cousin previously. They were joined by grunts who were all ultras because of the thunderstorm skull, which promotes almost every enemy to higher ranks. While fighting, I learned that Emil is an armor lock kid, which immediately made me lose all respect for him. One thing I'll note as I pushed up outside, I did not watch any guides for this playthrough. Everything I do was my own strategizing based off of my own knowledge of the game and trial and error, of course, because boy were there a lot of errors. Like here, you're supposed to fight a lot more enemies, including a few elites, but I remembered from my days of playing Halo Reach as a 10-year-old that you could avoid the rest of the valley by just running on the edge. And just like that, I was driving around with the giant cyborg man looking for more illegal aliens. At the next stop, I grabbed a needle rifle and almost immediately ran out of ammo because of the famine skull, which makes dropped weapons have half as much ammo as usual, which makes ammo management obviously a lot harder. Not to mention that with the mythic skull, enemies have double the health, so getting headshots, back smacks, super combines, etc. was essential again for ammo management. Although one issue with getting headshots is obviously me not having a reticle to tell me where I'm aiming. In past LASO videos, I mentioned putting a piece of tape on my monitor with a black dot where my reticle would be to help me aim. I did not do that in this video. The reason being that I was too lazy to get out of my chair to go get tape. I had my first couple deaths at this house, one of them because I learned the hard way that plasma pistol overcharges don't take down elite ultra shields in LASO. I had to save and quit real fast after each death because of the iron skull, which on solo means you restart the entire level if you die. But if you save and quit real fast, you can get around it and go back to your previous checkpoint, which I do because it's a BS skull that punishes solo play and encourages co-op, because on co-op, all it does is revert you to your last checkpoint if one player dies. I will not be punished for not having friends to play Halo with. My next life, I tried overcharging again, and it took 1, 2, 3. I feel like Mr. Owl. Then a plasma explosion, so we'll call that 4 overcharges to take down one elite's shields, which told me that noob comboing wasn't really a viable strat. You can see while I'm driving that my shields are perpetually down and not recharging, but a bit down the road I got out and meleeed a grunt, which then let them recharge. This is because of the black ice skull, which makes it so your shields don't recharge unless you melee an enemy. And I'm gonna emphasize I'm saying black eye, not black guy. With all these skulls under consideration, I determined that the best way to take down elites was to give them the old back smack or assassination. It recharges my shield, saves ammo as an insta-kill. If I could manage to get an elite to show me his back, this was the way to go. The issue, of course, being that this wouldn't always be so easy. The final fight of the area wasn't hard per se, until I ran out of DMR ammo, then it became really hard, because I could no longer take out grunts efficiently and there were 2 elites instead of 1, so if I tried to assassinate one of them, the other would just shoot me. After a couple attempts of sneaking around the back, I tried exercising other options. First, I looked all around the area for more precision weapon ammo. I found nothing. I even drove to previous areas to see if there was anything else I could scavenge. I tried DMing Marty for help only to get crickets, but then when I thought all hope was lost, I had a realization. Wait a second, I'm operating a 4,000-pound death machine. So I tried a new strat, running over the elites. I died the first attempt from getting EMP'd, so my next attempt I first took out as many grunts as I could before going in and splattering both elites and clearing the area. We went on another helicopter ride where June sat in a really precarious position until it dropped us off in a courtyard where we're supposed to hold out, except I immediately ran to the side and all the way around to get to a hiding spot inside the base where I would remain until all the other Spartans killed enough guys for me, while I offered words of encouragement. After moving inside the base, we discovered the Covenant had killed Santa Claus, a lady tried to fight off George by punching his metal armor, and we were ambushed by a group of dinosaurs which kicked off the end portion of the level after they retreat further into the base. This part was really tough, and I learned almost immediately that in this game's LASO, jackals don't flinch when you shoot them in the hand, meaning the easiest way to kill jackals in every Halo game simply wasn't an option. The Covenant pushed up on us immediately and had us backed into the wall where I had no plasma weapons and therefore no way to kill the elite, while George got pummeled by concussion rifle shots and grenades because of the catch skull, which makes enemies throw away more grenades. There are more skulls, but that's the last really important skull in my opinion, so I'm not going to explain anymore. If you want the full list of skulls, then just Google it or something, I don't know. You're a grown adult, figure it out. Unless you're a child, in which case, please don't message me. I'm not a Minecraft YouTuber, I don't want to talk to you. To avoid getting cornered immediately, in my next life I pushed up immediately, which was definitely the way to go, and George and I had a fighting chance. We advanced to the final area where there were two zealots, one with the sword and the other being the concussion rifle elite from earlier. I got rushed by the sword guy and my attempts to overcharge him were in vain as his shields were too strong and he sworded me. For those of you rushing to the comments to let me know what I could have done with the plasma pistol instead, I will tell you now that I did figure out the better way to use it later on. You know what, that death was okay though, because surely I had a checkpoint before the end fight, son of a bitch. Okay, let's just fight through the enemies again and this time I'll make it. Okay, I finally made it back where I was once again killed at the end, this time by the concussion rifle guy, but thankfully this time I had a checkpoint. My next try, the sword elite got stuck behind a computer thing, which was great news to me and allowed me to take him out, leaving only one alive who I rushed with the other guy's sword, and after a couple hearty swings, I was able to get around him and assassinate him. That was it for enemies, so we returned to the rest of the group where George was comforting the girl and Emil was instigating him, so like a school teacher, Carter told them both to knock it off despite one clearly being in the wrong. Kat did big brain stuff while her brain was still in her head, and that was winter contingency in 50 minutes and 13 seconds. That doesn't count my time in the menus, but that is the actual amount of time I was in the level playing. Unlike in Halo 2, it doesn't reset to what it was when I got my last checkpoint every time I save and quit. Sword base is level 2 and takes place on my 552nd birthday shortly after I get woken up from cryo sleep like Walt Disney. The level began with me and Kat versus a few grunts and a Marine getting obliterated before I assassinated an elite in an animation that seemed to get canceled a quarter of the way through. Weird. I expected this opening to be the hardest part of the entire level. There are tons of jackals, grunts, and elites, all of whom are ultras. Kat and I were on opposite sides, so to get jackals, I just had to wait for them to focus on her and overall just stay patient. After the lesser Covenant were clear, I killed the first elite with a back smack and retreated. Then was still trying to overcharge the other ultras because I'm stupid before successfully back-smacking one of the last two elites. Only one elite left and I moved into position. Oof. Well, surely I got a checkpoint during all that at some point. Nope. Well, I was one elite away from clearing it my first try last time, so I'll just do it again. Excuse me for a second. I was so mad by Mercer Mayer. I wanted to play hide and seek in the clean sheets, but Grandma said, no, you can't. I'm going to fucking kill myself. Okay, finally, Kat and I pushed up and we'd gotten it down to two elites who were both focused on her. There goes one elite. I got the second elite's shield down, and for some reason, I tried to backsmack him instead of just shooting him in the head. As painful as it was to die again, I probably deserved it there. But thankfully, I had a checkpoint that time with only the one elite left, so I was free to reload and this time get the backsmack. We are so back. Next up, I grabbed a target locator, which calls in an airstrike on whatever target I mark. My strategy here was to kill one of the two wraiths with it, then steal the other, which is easier said than done, but after a few tries, I got on top of the wraith so I could shoot the driver without damaging the wraith itself, and this is where I discovered the correct way to take down shields with the plasma pistol. Tap fire rather than overcharges. After taking the wraith, this level turned basically into an auto-scroller. I didn't die at all. I just had to hang back, volley shots, and kill stuff before moving in. It's so easy that, dare I say it, a game journalist could do it. I activated an AA turret through a wall to avoid a fight with the general elite, and to complete the objective, which let me get back in the wraith before a bunch more guys showed up. At the other objectives, similar stuff. I wraithed everything. I got out for a bit to headshot skirmishers, then ran up onto a building and hit another button, which I don't remember the purpose of, but Kat told me to. After taking out a few more vehicles, Kat and I were back at Sword Base, where all of our work from earlier was for naught as the base was once again full of split lips. It also had the first hunters of the game, who I was killed by a few times. However, they honestly weren't nearly as hard as I expected. I just had to alternate between shotgun blasts and melees. What is bro doing? The rest of the level from here on out was pretty easy. I had backup from Marines as well as most of the rest of Noble Team, who do a really good job of distracting elites and letting me backsmack them. I found a golden Moa, then got ambushed by grunts who I'm pretty sure stuck me, but somehow I lived. Unfortunately, I don't have the theater file to check because I didn't think to check until now as I'm writing this because I'm stupid. Like I said, none of the rest of this level was too bad, but it certainly wasn't deathless. The ending involves rocketing Banshees alongside Emil, which I was having trouble with because they dodged every rocket I fired. Eventually, Emil took out the last one for me. I accidentally skipped the ending cutscene, and that was Oni Sword Base in just under 1 hour. Sword Base is followed by Nightfall, where we go to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant to exterminate the Jedi. After seeing how many 6-year-olds Anakin can take on at once, the rest of the level involves June, Noble 6, and the camera guy sneaking around in this game's sniper level. Now, I mentioned that I wasn't using guides for this playthrough, and that's the truth. However, many moons ago, I did a Halo Reach speedrun video, and this was the one level that I actually kind of learned and got a respectable time on, and I mostly remembered what to do, and it pretty much all transferred over. This first big fight, you can literally just run past by going this way. That's like 20 minutes of fighting skipped. In the next section, I killed a grunt on a turret, ran to a hiding spot, then bolted past the area while they were all focused on June. I was met by a couple enemies, but I had it under control. I ran past a couple strange dogs, then a holdout section with militia, and came across a Covenant base. I backsmacked as many enemies as I could and hopped in a forklift. There's a trick with the forklift where if you park it just right against this door, you can get out and clip through the door, skipping the rest of the level. I couldn't remember exactly where or how to line up, but I thought it was worth just trying it over and over until I got it. Then I got it first try. Giga Chad. Once through the door, there are no more enemies the remainder of the mission. June and I do some scouting of a giant Covenant armada, and that was Nightfall in 5 minutes and 32 seconds. The next mission starts with us challenging this giant Covenant planet-destroying genocidal alien armada with a bunch of cars that have machine guns on the back. Ours driven by Cat, and after crashing, Cat is like, "Tee-hee, I'm just a girl," and the level begins. You start the level with the grenade launcher and a DMR, and since I was planning on dropping the grenade launcher ASAP, I just spammed it at the beginning, and quickly died after encountering 3 grunts. After a couple more deaths, I successfully cleared the area, and we entered a rocket hog, and we drove to the next encounter where our gunner immediately got domed. I was fine with that though, because up ahead there's a big AA cannon, and you're supposed to fight through enemies to get inside it, but instead, I just used the rocket hog to shoot it in the back of the head. We approached a factory with a bunch of Covenants, so I got back on the rocket gun and was taking my time shooting them. I let Kat get in the driver's seat because there was no place for her to drive anyway, so I didn't think it mattered. And of course, for no reason at all, she drove us directly off a cliff. It's strange how Kat is depicted throughout the game as being the smartest woman on the planet, yet she still has no ability to drive. What did Bungie mean by this? In the factory building place, I had more basic combat, nothing too special. At this point, I would say I had a pretty good hang of how to kill aliens in this game's LASO. Although I did get the big boot from an MK Ultra Elite a couple times. I got in a Revenant, then made it to another AA cannon where I again just shot it in the back of the head using my trusty Revenant. The Revenant is the worst vehicle in gaming history. Trying to clear the rest of the area with it was painful. It's slower than a Ghost and does way less damage than a Wraith. It's like the kid in school who isn't athletic enough to play sports or smart enough to be a nerd. It's just a loser. Afterwards, we went on a Falcon ride where I shot at guys and didn't die, then the pilot yelled Kobe and crashed the helicopter. We were close to the Spire, our main objective, and I again remembered some speedrun strats where you kinda run up the side and grab a truck and go straight up just like that. Easy. But it wasn't over just yet because there are a few enemies at the top, including grunts, fuel rod grunts, and a sword elite, all of whom killed me multiple times each. For some reason at this point, I had reverted and was trying to overcharge the sword elite, until one of my attempts where I ran out of DMR ammo and instead grabbed a plasma rifle, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise as I plasma rifled him to death. We blew up the Spire, a giant Covenant ship called a super carrier showed up, and that was tip of the spear in just under 40 minutes. Which brings us to the mission you probably came here for, Long Night of Solace, where the boys sit around a cave reading poetry and Kat sits in a pose that was absolutely perfect for the best thumbnail I've ever made. We travel to the beach and fight Covenant while epic music plays in a clear homage to the classic Halo 1 level, the silent assault on the 343 Guilty Library. This fight has several elites, so as you can probably surmise, I died several times. One of these deaths came when I only had one elite left alive, which really sucked. But as the great Gary Vee once said, if at first you don't succeed, simply picture your family being shot in the face as motivation. We pushed inside the facility on the beach and saw a beautiful spaceship, which Jorge and I took into the final frontier, and the worst part of this game on Legendary, which is actually made even harder on the Master Chief Collection because the increased tick rate versus the original makes the enemies even more aggressive. So of course, I did not get through this deathless and I had my fair share of deaths. Going directly at the enemy ships is suicide because there's a lot more of them than there are of me and they have superior firepower. You do have allies though, so I did want to try to be aggressive and keep them alive, but the way I did this was by shooting at a target for a bit, then bailing as soon as I got shot back at rather than sticking to them until I blew them up. After clearing the first Seraph wave, the defenses for the big station come back online, which meant my strategy changed to just hiding behind it and occasionally popping out for pot shots. This honestly wasn't much harder than just regular Legendary. Mythic matters because the enemy ships have more health and I can't see my reticle or shields or anything, but I played this basically the same as regular Legendary, which is still really tough in its own right and the worst part of this game on Legendary, but it's not unbeatable. So Phase 1, I didn't have any more deaths. Curious George and I parked at Anchor 9, and we later met up at a Covenant Corvette for Phase 2 of the space section, which is definitely the harder one. I tried to rush the ship's engines and blow them up right away, which was a mistake because I had no cover. So afterwards, I used a strategy of hiding behind the Savannah, the big old ship, except unlike Anchor 9, it's always in motion and I have to keep up with it or get blown up because there's only so many shots you can avoid by taking evasive maneuvers. But yeah, this wasn't much different than just regular Legendary. It took me a few minutes for sure, but nothing too crazy, which I was honestly disappointed by because I know how much you, the viewers, love watching me suffer. If I was a good YouTuber, I would have died a lot more times on purpose and taken 3 hours, but alas. Look at this though, I'm tap firing the elites with a plasma pistol. I'm learning. No cap, for real, skibbity. I died more times in the Corvette than I did in the Saber, because unlike the Saber section, this is substantially different than basic female dog Legendary. Getting to use fully loaded needle rifles was good though. I was nailing dudes left and right with combines, and noob combos actually kind of work on elite rangers. Overcharges don't take down their shields all the way, but pretty close. After clearing the hangar, I was ordered by command to press a button to open the hangar doors. The problem is with the blind skull, I had no objective markers and had no idea where this button was. So I spent a few minutes running all around the hangar trying to find a button until I gave up and Googled a playthrough of this mission. Frog, didn't you say you wouldn't watch guides? Ah yes, a guide on where to press a button, you caught me. The rest of the Corvette may surprise you. I cleared the first fight just fine, as well as the next haul. The elites were being very kind. I died a couple times on the bridge before nailing down my strategy. I backsmacked this stealth elite, then his buddy right beside him, took out a third stealth elite with a sword, died, thankfully had a checkpoint, and backsmacked the elite general, clearing the bridge. This time, I didn't need a guide to find the button to press. A few more enemies arrived who I could take out just fine, except there was an elite ultra who ran back to the previous room. No matter, I'll just kill him on the way back. Except a second ultra spawns alongside other Covenant. I was low on needle rifle ammo, and for some reason I was still overcharging the elites even though it was almost completely ineffective. I died several times in this room. I probably spent the most time here, but after a few tries I managed to get them both. I ran back to the hangar where there was ammo everywhere and George drawing fire, so finishing this level out was very easy. In the cutscene, George turns evil and decides to steal the ship and control the galaxy, so he pushes us off the ship to burn up in the planet's atmosphere upon re-entry, but joke's on him because he crashes the Corvette into the super carrier and gets blowed up. Long Night of Solace done in 57 minutes and 8 seconds. And that brings us to my favorite mission in Halo Reach, Exodus, where Mobile 6, after surviving falling back to the planet, makes his way to New Alexandria armed with only a pistol and walks crouched even though he's 7 feet tall. After taking out 3 skirmishers, this level turns into me versus nothing but suicide grunts, which aren't very hard to deal with because all you have to do is stay back and let them blow themselves up. I worked my way out after a couple minutes and found my first brute of the game, the main bad guys of this level. In Exodus, there are 0 elites. I got off on a terrible foot though because I tried meleeing this brute for shields only to get killed by a punch of his own despite being 12 feet away from where he was aiming. Whatever though, I'll just reload the last checkpoint and I don't understand how this keeps happening. Okay, fight through the grunts again, get back outside, this time headshot the brute and we're good. A bunch more brutes get dropped in by a phantom, but thankfully there's a somewhat hidden sniper rifle up top which can blow their stupid monkey heads off. And they are stupid, the last brute of the area died by sticking himself. Because this level didn't have elites, this made weapons viable that previously weren't. Like the Needler, who super combined insta-kills regular brutes and kills captains in only 2. Sticks were also useful for insta-kills as well as, of course, headshots with precision weapons. I walked up a flight of stairs at one point only to see a captain's corpse go flying. I have no clue what happened or how he died. There's a holdout section which got me once after I was cornered before I successfully defended the area my second try. I got in an elevator which took me to an airport terminal, then after killing dozens of civilians, I grabbed a jetpack in another area where I kind of remembered a speedrun path. There are a ton of enemies you're supposed to fight, but you can bypass everything by running around beams and edges below. I couldn't remember exactly how to do this and almost died once, then actually died another time. Until I finally made it to the last jump. I let my jetpack recharge, then flew up and got obliterated. Apparently I'd gotten a checkpoint before this last jump though, so I was now locked in and would need to just try it until it finally worked, and after a few attempts it did. This led me to more of the same in terms of combat, but I love it. Fighting aliens in city environments is peak. I wish Halo 3 had this too, but instead we go to Voy. I encountered my first brute chieftain of the level. They're the only brutes that have shields, but take those down and they get blowed up as easily as anyone else. Do you like Huey Lewis and the News? Their early work was a little too new wave for my taste, but when Sports came out in '83, after clearing the building and the landing pad, I hopped into a Falcon for a section which I thought could be terrible because I have no way to regen my shields from being shot, and there are a few Banshees that try to kill you here. Somehow I survived though. My guess is my health was basically 0. I got off the Falcon by Discount Sergeant Johnson, who recruited me to activate missile batteries with an arm army of Marines, this part wasn't too bad either. I jacked a Wraith, hit a sick shot on a Ghost pilot, watched as my Marines didn't shoot at brutes that were directly in front of them, armed the first battery, killed a few more brutes, armed the second battery, and cheesed my way into activating the missile defenses without actually having to fight the chieftains. The level was done, Cat called and asked you up, Noble 6 lit a flare, and that was Exodus in about 57 minutes. I backed out to the menu and sent Sloth an invite, which he didn't accept, feels bad man, before starting the next level, asking New Alexandria where it's raining, and Noble 6 is depressed because George is dead, but Carter is like, suck it up little bro, there's still 3 more levels left. This level is another certified banger where you fly around going to 3 main objectives in a randomized order. Because of the blind skull, there are no objective markers, but thankfully I played enough to know where the 3 main buildings are and which one is which. First up was a nightclub which has 4 hunters in it attacking Marines. My objective wasn't to save the Marines though, it was to disable a jammer, so I ran past the hunters, hit a button, and ran back out, leaving the Marines to fend for themselves in the Halo equivalent of throwing a baby into a swimming pool. In between the main objectives, there are side objectives, which are completely randomized. There are 10 different side objectives you could get, and every time you play this level, it picks a couple of those at random. The problem, of course, is that I don't have objective markers. So when I got the objective to just kill Jackal snipers, I had absolutely no idea where to go and just had to fly around. Until eventually, I came across a few Jackals focus rifling one spot and figured this must be it. So not too bad, all things considered. I at least had a visual indicator of some kind that I was in the right place. My second main objective was at the hospital, where the Covenant was trying to steal the medicine drug because only stupid people try the medicine drug and they are stupid. I had a death in the hospital, but in this early bit there are no elites, so the difficulty is greatly reduced and it was just a matter of patience. Get it? Because we're in a hospital? So patience like hospital patience? I fought my way to another jammer, hit the switch, and on the way out a bunch of elite rangers spawned. Thankfully, as I learned on Long Night, the rangers have pretty weak shields, so this wasn't very tough. Although it would have been even easier if I had a tape and black dot on the center of my monitor. There was an elite ultra on the way out, but I managed to get around him for a backsmack. Upon leaving, I got my next side objective to escort Sergeant Buck from ODST's Falcon. The problem, once again, being that I had no objective markers. This time, though, there weren't even big, bright focus rifle beams to help me find where to go. I just had to fly around until I found the Falcon, which I did. Right over here, I found a Falcon and flew with him and watched his back as he flew around the city until he flew outside the bounds of the map. After a few seconds where nothing happened, I realized, though, this was not the correct Falcon and I still had to find the right one in the giant dark city. Which, here we go, I found another one over here. Also not the right one. A couple minutes later, I found a third Falcon. We flew for a bit until he randomly stopped for no reason, and I thought that this must not be the right one either. I flew around the city some more, then came back and he was still in the same spot. I saw a random Phantom and took it out because I was bored, and even though this Phantom was nowhere close to the Falcon, apparently taking it out was exactly what I needed to do to get the Falcon to move again. Joke's on me though, because this also wasn't the right Falcon. Just kidding, it was the right one and I could move on to the last objective, which I entered through the back door, avoiding combat with a bunch of brutes. I took an elevator up to Ivory Tower from Halo 2, where after getting this one's jammer, a bunch of drones start spawning infinitely and you have to bolt out before they get you. I expected to die here at least once, but got out my first try. The last objective involves taking out anti-air turrets. There are Banshees too that seem to also spawn infinitely, but as soon as the last turret is destroyed, they all run away, so I focused on blowing them up and just trying to dodge the Banshee shots, which was the winning strategy, and I landed at Oni, where I was reunited with the rest of Noble Team, including my favorite member, Cat, who I hope nothing bad ever happens to. For some reason, Noble 6 thinks a Magnum will do anything against a Zealot on LASO.
4709.
The penultimate mission, the package, is about us going back to Sword Base because Halsey ordered something from Amazon but forgot to update her shipping address. After a moderately difficult combat part to open the level, I found a fully operational tank with the key still in it. The Halo Reach tank is very good. It shoots extremely fast and its shots go exactly where you aim it. It's the complete opposite of the war crime known as the Halo 1 tank. I came across more AA cannons to take out, but as I realized on my own as a kid, just like in Tip of the Spear, you can take them out by just shooting them in the back of the head. After I was the George to the second cannon's Lenny, I continued advancing to Sword Base until I got shot by a Revenant, which somehow killed me, even though when I use a Revenant, it's a worthless piece of garbage. Inside Sword Base, the rest of Noble was in a sticky situation, but I saved the day by showing up and immediately backsmacking 2 more Ultras and then headshotting a third before getting shot at by a turret I didn't know was there and subsequently dying. I killed some Jackals and Skirmishers, no big deal, Spec Ops elites with their really weak shields, whatever, and an elite general whose neck got stabbed. We gathered around in a coat closet before a hidden door opened that led us to a tram where Not Cortana told us we had new orders and needed to defend her lab in the North Pole while she gets data ready, which means it's time for another holdout section. And this was one of the hardest parts of the entire game, but at least I had backup from the rest of Noble Team. Because the remainder of the mission is just me standing around the same area defending the position, I'm not sure what else to say. So here's a supercut of all the times I died. Hit it, Johnny. That was 22 deaths. This part was really hard. We went inside the base and Halsey Claus showed us a purple AI chick and handed her over to Noble 6 since he's the main character. The package was the longest so far at 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 7 seconds. The Pillar of Autumn begins with Carter bleeding out all over the cockpit of a Pelican before Emil and I jump out despite me carrying a fragile glass container holding the key to saving humanity. When the level started, I stood in place for a little bit because my pet anteater shit all over the carpet before wasting a few more minutes trying to jump off the ledge and assassinate the elite below for swag points. Eventually, on one of these attempts, I did not die from the fall, but not because I landed on the elite. I came up short and then assassinated him and started picking off grunts. Then I died and reverted back to the top of the ledge again. Eventually, after getting the elite again, instead of standing back and killing everything, I rushed ahead to a house with a couple mongoose, which Emil and I drove to the next encounter, where I just hung back and shot enemies with the DMR. Again. I did have to dodge wraith shots, so that was something. At this point, I was ready to be through with this already. Carter flew a Pelican into a Scarab. I wonder if he's okay. There are more bug people in a cave, and this time I have to actually fight them, but they die to a single headshot at least. This area sucked because there are a billion elites. That's an exaggeration. There aren't actually a billion because that would crash the game probably. And be unfun. Speaking of unfun, did I mention I was playing Halo Reach LASO? Kill people, shoot people, punch people. This part sucked because there were 3 Elite Ultras all grouped up together. I died a number of times. I found a hologram armor ability and tried using that to distract them, but that didn't really work. Eventually, I just got lucky. But check this out, I'm not trying to overcharge the Elite. I told you that by the end of the game I'd learned. Jumping ahead a bit, this holdout section was the hardest part of the entire game, despite it being brutes, grunts, and jackals, but no elites. Mainly because ammo is an issue, which is weird because the building below is full of ammo. I couldn't find any for the DMR though, which meant after a couple waves, I was out of precision weapon ammo. It's still not as bad as Hangar 1 and Cairo Station back on Halo 2 though. I've done all these LASO challenges, and that stupid hangar at the start of Halo 2 is still the pinnacle in terms of difficulty for me. This section I was able to get through after like half an hour of real time. That hangar took me hours. Captain Key shows up and looks way better in this game than Halo C Anniversary, even though it's the same model. Some elites drop off by Emil, who was on a gun by the way, forgot to mention, but who cares, and he gets stabbed in the back because he didn't check his radar. Since Emil is dead, I have to go get on the gun to cover Keyes' escape, which requires me killing a few Zealot elites. No big deal. I was a seasoned LASO elite killer at this point, and they're stupid. You're supposed to get on the gun and fight off ships while a thing charges up, but that's really hard on Legendary, let alone LASO, so instead I hid below until Keyes yelled at me to blow up the carrier, where I rushed to get on the gun, completely whiffed on my first shot and thought I was toast before nailing the second shot and ending the level. The Pillar of Autumn escapes and finds the Halo ring. My current objective became to survive, but instead I died on purpose. But wait a second, even though we see Noble 6 get held down by elites and his helmet destroyed, could he still be alive? Here's how Bernie can still win. The achievement I unlocked is called Why Do This to Yourself? And my answer is, of course, views. If you like this video, check out my LASO playlist or just click the video on screen to see another one. Thanks to my patrons like always for supporting the channel. Peace out.